The office buzzed with laughter and music as the annual New Year's Eve party hits its stride. The fluorescent lights were replaced by festive string lights, casting the break room in a warm, celebratory glow. Streamers hung from every available surface, and the unmistakable pop of the champagne corks punctuated the hum of conversation. Roseanne smiled politely as she moved through the crowd, clutching a glass of sparkling cinder. Roseanne, great to see you. Mark from accounting waved her over. She made her way towards him, her red dress catching the light as she passed clusters of colleagues engrossed in their conversation. As she greeted Mark, Roseanne felt a prickling sensation at the back of her neck, the distinct feeling of being watched. Turning subtly, her eyes scanned the room. That's when she saw her, Lydia. Lydia was standing near the refreshment table, her eyes fixed on Roseanne. She held a plastic cup of punch, but it remained untouched in her hand. Lydia had always been a little different, quiet, reserved, and almost invisible during regular work days. She seemed to light up whenever Roseanne was around. At first, Roseanne had chalked it up to harmless admiration, but over the past few months, Lydia's behavior had grown increasingly unsettling. She'd linger near Roseanne's desk, finding reasons to join her at lunch breaks, and occasionally send cryptic emails that felt more personal than professional. Roseanne shook off the unease and returned her attention to Mark. So, any resolution for the new year? She asked, forcing a smile. Before Mark could answer, the room suddenly dimmed. A few gasps rippled through the crowd as the string light flickers. The digital clock on the wall showed 11:55 p.m. Someone joked about the old building's writing, and the conversation resumed. With a nervous edge, Roseanne excused herself to grab a drink. As she approached the refreshment table, Lydia stepped into her path. Hi, Roseanne, she said, her voice barely above the whisper. Oh, hi, Lydia, Roseanne replied, forcing another smile. Enjoying the party? Lydia didn't answer. Instead, she stared at Roseanne with an intensity that made her want to take a step back. You're so kind, Lydia said suddenly. Always so kind to everyone, even to me. Roseanne laughed nervously. Well, it's a party. Everyone should feel welcome. She glanced toward the clock, 11:58. Better get ready for the countdown. But Lydia didn't move. Her hand twitched, and for the first time, Roseanne noticed how tightly she was gripping her cup. You don't understand, Lydia said, her voice trembling. You're the only one who sees me, the only one who cares. Roseanne opened her mouth to respond, but the lights flickered again, plunging the room into brief darkness. When they came back on, Lydia was gone. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The crowd's voices were jubilant, but Roseanne's heart pounded. She scanned the room looking for Lydia, but there was no sight of her. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year's! Cheers erupted, and the sound of champagne bottles popping filled the air. Confetti rained down, and partygoers embraced one another. Then a scream cut through the celebration. Roseanne turned towards the sound and saw one of her colleagues backing away from a far corner of the room. There, there where the shadows seemed unnaturally deep, stood Lydia. Her face was twisted into an expression of pure rage. In her hand she held something gleaming, a letter opener, its blade catching the light. You think you're better than me, Lydia shrieked, pointing to the letter opener towards Roseanne. You act so nice, but you're just like the rest of them. You'll forget me, leave me behind, but not tonight, not anymore. The room froze. For a moment, no one moved, and the music continued to play as if mocking the scene. Then, as if broken from a spell, Mark stepped forward. Lydia, put that down, he said, his voice steady but firm. Lydia's eyes darted between Mark and Roseanne. "Stay back," she shouted. "This is between me and her." Roseanne's pulse thundered in her ears. She raised her hand, trying to calm Lydia. "Lydia, please," she said gently. "Let's talk. Just you and me, okay? No one's going to hurt you." Lydia's grip on the letter opener faltered for a moment, but before she could respond, the light flickered once more, plunging the room into complete darkness. A collective gasp went up from the crowd, followed by the sound of shuffling and a thud. Then the lights came back on. Lydia was on the ground, unconscious, with Mark kneeling beside her. The letter opener lay a few feet away. "She's breathing," Mark said, looking up at Roseanne. "But we need to call someone." Roseanne nodded, her hands trembling as the party goers began murmuring and pulling out their phones. She stepped back, her eyes drawn to the corner where Lydia had stood. The shadows there seemed darker than they should have been, almost alive, as if they were watching her. For the rest of the night, Roseanne couldn't shake the feeling that something far more sinister had been lurking into the room. Something that wasn't done with her yet. Sophia thought Adam was perfect. They met at a New Year's Eve party, and their whirlwind of romance began immediately. But as the week passed, Adam's charms turned into possessiveness. He grew jealous of her friends, controlled where she went, and monitored every step she took. By the next year's Eve, Sophia had enough. She broke things off that morning and planned to celebrate with her friends to move on. At the party, she tried to forget him, laughing and dancing as the countdown began, but her phone buzzed instantly. Adam was calling, texting, begging her to call him. She ignored him. When midnight struck, Sophia stepped outside for fresh air. That's when she saw him, standing in the shadows across the street. His face was pale, and he held something in his hand. A small, wrapped gift. "Pourquoi tu m'évites?" he whispered, stepping closer. Sophia backed away, fear creeping in. "Adam, leave me alone," she smiled. His eyes wide and unblinking. "You'll love your gift. I made it just for you." He tossed the box towards her and walked away. Sophia hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a cracked photo of them together, with the word, "Si je ne peux pas t'avoir, personne ne peut," scrawled in blood-red ink across her face. Danny and her boyfriend, Lucas, had an explosive relationship. They'd fight, break up, and then make up in a dramatic fashion. On New Year's Eve, they'd had one of their worst arguments yet at a crowded bar. Danny stormed out, leaving Lucas behind. She walked home through the snowy streets, cursing him under her breath. When she arrived at her apartment, she found a single red rose taped to her door. Her anger softened. She assumed Lucas had followed her to apologize. But as she unlocked the door, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Lucas. "Je suis encore au bar. Tu es où?" Danny froze. Slowly, she turned to look at the street below. A shadow moved near the corner, a figure watching her. She slammed the door shut and called the police. When they arrived, they found no one, but on the bathroom mirror, written in lipsticks, were the words, "Bonne année, mon amour." Lena's New Year's Eve house party was in full swing. Friends crowded every corner of her home, drinking and laughing. But as midnight passes and the crowd thinned, Lena noticed someone she didn't recognize. A man in a dark coat sitting in her living room, staring at the fireplace. Excusez-moi, she said cautiously. "I think the party's over. Do you need a ride?" The man didn't respond. He just turned his head slowly, his expression blank. Okay, well, time to go, Lena insisted, her unease growing. Finally, he stood, towering over her. I've been waiting for this night for a long time, he said. Lena's blood ran cold. Qui êtes-vous? Instead of answering, he turned and walked out the door. She locked it behind him, but as she went to turn off the light, she noticed something horrifying. On her mantel was a Polaroid picture of her asleep in her bed. The timestamp 12:01 a.m., January 1st.